Good afternoon, everyone. I see the time is right already, and could I have your attention, please? My name is Olha Krytska. I'm a manager of the project, the First University of St. Gallen Grand Challenge, and I want to welcome you here, welcome you on our Proposers Day. Together with me are the speakers, Thomas Burri, the founder and the man behind the whole idea of the Grand Challenge, Viktoriya Zakrevskaya, the executive manager, Juliane Beck, scientific advisor, and Philippe Narval will join us later. He's director of the square, and last but not least, Pascal Vörös. He is project leader of our strategic partner, and he will introduce himself later. First of all, I would like to tell you briefly about the agenda and the timing of the meeting. We will have 2 sessions. The one you're sitting now will last around 1 hour and around 30 minutes. At the end, we will have Q&A session. And when you have any questions during the meeting, you can write them in the box and we will try to answer them at the end. If some questions are not answered, we will give you later answers in written form if they are not covered in the materials of the Grand Challenge. You don't see us, you see us, but you don't see each other because it's a form of webinar. And all your questions in the chat will be anonymous. So don't be afraid to ask any questions with regards to the Grand Challenge. And after that, we will have a short break and another sitting with those people who registered for 1-by-1 session. And you should get a separate link to the separate Zoom room. So that's only for people who registered beforehand for that session. For all the rest, the session will end after Q&A, and I will give a couple words at the end of this session. And the whole idea and the aim, the purpose of this meeting is to give you a brief overview of the Grand Challenge, the selection process, and certain rules of the Grand Challenge. Of course, we will introduce you to our strategic partners and present the venue, the square where the final will take place. And I hope this meeting will be very useful for you and you will get a better idea of what will happen during the Grand Challenge and how the teams will be selected. And now I'd like to give the floor to our strategic partner and to its representative, Pascal. You can now turn the lead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ola. So my name is Pascal Vörös. I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much. We want to support, of course, this Grand Challenge from our side, and I will quickly show you how this support looks like, and I try to share my screen immediately so that you see a bit how we support the Grand Challenge. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm working as a part of the Federal Department of Defense and Civil Protection. We are part of Arma Swiss. So, you know, for those of you who come from abroad, often it's said we are the part of the Swiss DARPA, Arma Swiss Science and Technology. We work closely together with the Swiss Armed Forces and building bridges there. So I'm a scientific project leader in the Swiss Drone and Robotics Center, with the main focus on social science research. And I'm supporting in that sense also the research work that you do with the Grand Challenge. First, the technological development in general, a few words to that. We are all witnessing that technological progress is in an exponential pace. It's highly commercially driven. You have short technological cycles and the potential of disruptive change. And there I put the question, is it even faster than legislation? So what we try to do from our center is that we anticipate those rapid developing technologies more quickly through demonstrators, prototypes, and integrating civilian products. So that's more on the technical side. And then we are also trying to adapt technologies more quickly through early implementing ethical and legal considerations. And so this challenge is one thing that we try to early get a deep understanding how good the implementation will be for the EU AI Act. So a few words about our robotic ecosystem in Switzerland. Yes, it was said, you know, that in Switzerland we have some kind of Silicon Valley of robotics, or the drone center of the world, home of drones, things like that. So we have really this high academic power in Switzerland, a high density of SME landscape for innovation, regularly world champion in innovative countries, this high quality of education, and the strong network. And we highly rely in our work on this environment. So then we have, on the other hand, the Swiss Armed Forces, which are at the very beginning in integrating AI and robotic systems. We had an interview with representatives who said that we have the risk to miss the topic as a whole. But also there is this opportunity for Switzerland to produce intelligent, lightweight, high-tech systems. And we have to seize that. So the university and the industry are available in Switzerland. And you see there, our center, we try to build the bridge between those two worlds. For the Grand Challenge, we integrated one part of it, the boot camp, I come back to that, into our one of our main events that we have during the year. It's called ARCE. ARCE stands for Advanced Robotic Capabilities for Hazardous Environment. It's a bit a long title, but you know, advanced robotic capabilities means really mobile robotics with a lot of AI-enabled capabilities, and then hazardous environments. This means that our focus is disaster relief, and we do that since 2018. So the Swiss Robotics for the Future of Disaster Relief. Let me be clear, we do no research on the utility of autonomous weapon systems out of moral reasoning and also legal frameworks. So our focus is with civil research partners and startups in the disaster relief, because we think it's ideal to have this application for robotics. You know, this 4D applications, it's dull, it's dirty, dangerous, denied, where you have no GPS signal, saving lives, protecting and relieving first responders, really trying to do that. And it's not a replacement, it's a support of humans, and we look closely into this human-machine teaming. Also, it's an interesting event because, you know, the economic criteria is not the key criteria. You can try something out and you don't have immediately to show the shareholder value. And we also can rise or diminish complexity as we want. So it's also adaptable to other scenarios. And yeah, this tool, ARCE, is you have some photographs and an impression on it. You know, we have a unique infrastructure with floating facilities, gravel fields. You see here also a fire simulation facility, or we can also simulate accidents, and then the robots come into the real world, you know, do the utility assessment and have their test bed. On the other side, for the rescue or Swiss Armed Forces, for the rescue troops. They have increasing awareness towards technology, what is possible and what is not possible, what can this system do and what not. We have trainings, seminars, we have an ETH summer school and an integration week. So it's a whole week, a big event with last year about 200 participants. And yeah, so that you get an idea where we integrate the boot camp to do this assessment for you, and or the assessment that you do there. So some impressions, photos. It's a quite a facility in red at the different testing grounds. Other impressions like this. So we will find there a lot of researchers with a lot of different robotic systems, walking systems, flying systems, sneaky systems, etc. And maybe also some impression in motion. So a firefighting robot where you can exchange the modules as an example. Drone with automation detection of radioactivity material, or drone with omnidirectional propellers, amphibious robots, remotely controlled excavator. Yeah, that's all just quickly that to grasp a bit the wide variety of robotic system. So to the boot camp at RK, so we want to integrate this boot camp. For the specific details about the boot camp, consult the rulebook. If there are questions, you can reach out to the organizers anytime. Some points I would like to repeat out of the rulebook 1.0. You know, the boot camp takes place on 11th or the 12th of July near Geneva in Epes. So the purpose of the boot camp is to give the team the opportunity to test their tools and skills on existing AI technology. As you have seen, the available technology is embodied AI technology, robots typically used for disaster relief purposes. And the organizer reserved the possibility to present the teams an AI application at the boot camp, which is to be assessed during the Grand Challenge final. So this so-called carryover AI application. And apart from this possibility, the performance of teams at the boot camp does not count towards the final and is not measured. And yeah, of course, I can do that too. Is strongly recommend that teams participate in the boot camp, but it's not mandatory. And thus, yeah, we are committed to support the Grand Challenge and you all to enable access to world-class roboticists that are developing cutting-edge technology. And I hope they will meet, you know, world-class legal advisors or assessors. And I'm looking forward to see you in July at the RK Days. And I hope this short briefing gave you a better insight of what the boot camp is about. And I hand over back to the organizer. Thanks.
Thank you, Pascal. All right. Now our executive manager, Viktoriya Zakrevskaya, she will lead the meeting.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you, Olga. Thank you, Pascal. Thank you, all the participants. Right now we have, I think, about 73 and about 100 registered. Want to say thank you to everyone who've been interested in our event and for extensive communication that we had over the last few weeks. I hope you will find this event useful because its purpose, as we already said, is not actually a networking, but to give you as much information on the content, on the idea, the content, and some of the logistic issues that that are important for this event. Now I will briefly speak about general issues of this project. For this, I will share the slides with you. Probably some of you have seen it already because this is our corporate presentation. And I will start by saying a couple of words of background on how and why we came up with this idea. Basically, Professor Dr. Thomas Burri has initiated this project, and he apparently has been very inspired by the DARPA challenges previously, and given that he's one of the lawyers in Switzerland that are exploring the issue of artificial intelligence, the idea of our competition is to offer the public with a competition that investigates the practicability and feasibility of the EU Artificial Intelligence Act. So this was the idea of it. And the teams that are going to be assessing the applications are going to be interdisciplinary, and the idea was to collect as many practitioners as possible, meaning the technical professionals, the product teams, lawyers and consultants, hopefully standard setting institutions, representatives and legislators. And from what we've seen in terms of interest to our competition, I think we have very good chances for success in having these people on teams. But also, of course, our target group is scientists and academics. The aim of it is to show the producers of the AI how the act can be implemented, and also establish a new form of stress test for the upcoming legislation, and of course reveal the means to practitioners of how and of what it takes actually to implement the act in practice. As all of you already know, the grand challenge with the aims that we have matters because the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act matters. And the timing of the event has been chosen because we wanted to be able to finish this competition by the time the act is likely to be heard in the European Union, which is why we wanted to finish it by fall 2023, which is quite steep timing, but this was our initial idea, and I think we will be quite successful with this. This thing will allow us to bring back the results of the competition back to legislative interest and consideration, which is why we think this is one of the very important things with this regard, because for me, for example, as a professional in political communications, this is a very rare moment when you actually can influence, at least not maybe influence, but at least inform the legislators with the actual research results. I've already said about the stakeholders that are going to benefit from the grand challenge. And I just wanted to add that basically this competition is also a very good chance to meet diverse types of professionals and expand professional network. Just a couple of words about the timing of the whole project. So today is the first very important event in the timeline of our project, which is the Proposers Day, when we give as much practical information as possible to those who are interested to apply with teams. And I will highlight that even though we accept applications from teams until the 22nd of March, it is also possible to apply to match make with the existing teams if you are an individual applicant. And Thomas will speak about it a bit later. We offered matchmaking and one-on-one sessions to everyone, or to most of you who has registered before this event, but we will also be able to register you later. I suggest to make a pause to give to give Philippe Narval possibility to say a few words, because he just connected and he will need to leave soon. So Olha, can you please give the floor to...
Yes, Philippe, are you with us? If you can join and speak up. We welcome you here. We are welcoming you here.
Let me say a brief welcome to all of you who are interested in the Grand Challenge. My name is Philippe Narval, and I am sort of speaking to you from a very unique venue, square at the University of St. Gallen. I think at the core, of course, this is all about the EU AI Act and Thomas's fantastic initiative. But I think with such a special first initiative that we are bringing to St. Gallen, you should also know that you will be hosted in summer at a unique place that just opened to the public a year ago and was built by Su Fujimoto, an architect, a star architect by Japan. Square is a building, but also an idea on experiential and experimental learning. We host 5,000 students in innovative courses each year. We are working together with faculty to also develop new formats. And aside from our programming side, it's just a fantastically beautiful building that is perfectly fit for innovative, interactive sessions. And I think you will just enjoy also interacting with this building on our campus. So I think an added bonus thing, and I'm looking forward to welcoming you all in St. Gallen and host the participating teams. And again, thanks and congratulations to all of you, Viktoriya, Thomas, for this fantastic initiative. And much looking forward to having you all here.
Thank you, Philippe. Yeah, that was director of the square, the venue where the final will take place. And again, I will turn it over to Viktoriya if she has something to finish.
Yeah, thank you. I will go back. Thank you, Philippe. So we accept proposals for teams until the 22nd of March, and teams and individual applicants will have the chance during this time from today on to matchmake with either the team, or maybe the teams would like to have an additional teammate. And later in this webinar, you will understand why, even though some of the teams already have their team in mind, but maybe you will consider making your team a little bit more diverse. But about requirements of selection and about the matchmaking, we will speak a little bit later. Thomas will have a presentation on this. And going back to the timeline, you see that after we received proposals for teams, basically the next event is the boot camp, and we already have a question from participants of this event, why the boot camp and the main grand challenge has such quite a substantive period of time in between. The answer is that the bootcamp is not mandatory to finish the project or to be selected as a winner, but this is an additional opportunity for you to test your methodology and also to have additional chance to apply to an actual artificial intelligence application. Besides, between these two events, you would have the chance to consolidate your knowledge, improve your approach, share some ideas, and probably, hopefully, be more prepared by the finals of the Grand Challenge that are taking place on the 18th, 19th July in Gallen. Here on this timeline, you also see that there is a replication of the main event in 2024. This is our idea is to host a minimal version of the same event, meaning that we will invite teams to assess the same technology a year later, but not to the same extent, of course. And we're interested in it because the technology is going to develop over the year. And for us, it would be very good to see how tangible is the act in terms of assessing the technology a year after the initial assessment has taken place. So this is the timeline of our event. The venue is Celebrated Square building at the University of St. Gallen. Philippe Narval, who has spoken before me, has taken time to say a few words about it. And yeah, I think basically I can finish by now.
Okay, thank you, Viktoriya. Now I want to give the floor to Thomas Burri, our founder and the whole idea man behind the project.
Thank you. Thank you, Olga. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, good. Look, there is just immense pleasure in having you here. I mean, this is, you know, we've already had quite a bit of a journey behind us. Now we're here. You are, I'm very glad to say, more numerous than we had dared to hope for. There are lots of you out there. Viktoriya already said it. There are more than 70 of you in the room. We know that many of you come as part of a team and you're there as one person, but you represent others. So we consider this already quite a success. We didn't know that we actually would get here in 4 weeks ago, but now we are here. Let me thank Pascal. The Swiss Center for Drones and Robotics, they organized the boot camp, which is really great. I think in the videos you saw it, you know, the technology they have there is just super exciting. And it's a possibility, you know, to actually get access to that technology. And if you're like me, you're in the field for a couple of years, you know how hard it is to get your hands on technology, to actually speak to those who produce that stuff. So Pascal, just a very great thanks to you. Of course, just to manage expectations, you won't be able to have access to all that technology. You know, we're going to have a selected number of pieces of technology you can interact with the researchers and so on and so forth. And you can wander around. It's going to be a great event. I've been there like twice, I think, or 3 times. And it's always like the spirit, you know, the entrepreneurial spirit of the engineers and everything is just almost contagious. It's actually one of the inspirations to actually hold this event we're having now. You know, me being at the Archie days, I always talk about the DARPA robotics channels, but it's the Archie days that, you know, made it come back to my mind that this is such a great thing. Okay, good. Now, one thing that I've been, let's say, nudged to say something about is, you know, I'm taking the bull by the horns here right away. I mean, why are there so many Russians on this initiative? You probably wonder, you get these emails with Cyrillic in you know, somewhere in between, and you wonder what's going on here. The answer is there are no Russians, right? There are two persons, that is Olga and Viktoriya, and they are from Kiev. And they were, by the circumstances, forced to leave this place and come to Switzerland. And this was a time when we just happened to have open positions and we filled them. We were able to bring on board Viktoriya and Olga. And I think this has just been like a huge win-win situation. I think we made something very good out of a very difficult situation in several regards. So that's something you should be aware of. I mean, I know Viktoriya and Olga, they don't want to hear this. I mean, without you, this would not happen. You know, Viktoriya from the beginning said, well, let's do it. It's a great idea. And I was going like an academic, you know, it's going to be an awful lot of work and so on. But it's Viktoriya, mainly Viktoriya, who pushed this through. She's an excellent manager and she's helping this thing to actually become real. And then there's also Juliane, with whom I have cooperated for a number of years now, who is doing like this fantastic PhD on machine learning. And now she's kind of come along with this initiative. Okay, but enough of the self-praise. I know you're here to hear about the rulebook. So everything I'm going to say in the following is pretty much contained in the rulebook. Let me share the screen. So let me say a word about the logo, because you've been probably been wondering about this terrible logo. But you know, I invite you to reconsider it now that you see it. You know, it's actually 6 triangles, and they point to at the center. So this for us represents the 6 teams we were going to select. Maybe we'll select 8, but 6 teams we need to have to make this real. But when you actually look at this thing and you step a bit back and you look at it, you'll see that it's a black cube, a black box. And this for us is, you know, a symbol for what AI is. And you will see in this kind of logo that it's also a bit transparent. So we're kind of helping along a little bit, making AI a bit transparent, not in a technical sense, but in the sense of the social sciences, the ethics, and the law. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Rulebook 1.0 and team selection. This, like everything on these slides, is the text copy-pasted from the Rulebook. So everything there is, you can look it up in the Rulebook, and I invite you to do it, because the Rulebook is really what you need to participate in this contest. You really need it to make the good application. Without the Rulebook, you'll be lost. I have highlighted certain parts in blue. So these are the ethics. These are really important to us because this is a competition. And like in any competition, there are certain things you shouldn't do. First of all, refrain from exchanging information with other teams participating in the grand challenge. This would wreck the context, the competition, right? Do not, under any circumstances, please do not approach AI technology providers. If you think this is a provider who could potentially provide technology to the AI challenge, to our challenge, don't approach them, please. Do not seek contact with the jury either. You don't know what the jury is, but we know how the world is. Information seeps out, people get to learn things, people know each other. So if you learn who the jury is by now, don't approach them, please. You will learn who the jury is in the course of the coming weeks. We're in contact with the jury. We want to make sure that they're comfortable in going public, in being on the webpage, and in showing their name. Good. You should not collaborate with persons who are not part of your team, right? Either. So don't involve more persons than those who are on your team. You can't have like 6 persons on the team and then an army of 20 at the background to do the real work. This is not how it's supposed to work. Good. You know by now that the deadline for team applications is March 22, 2023 at 10 p.m. Central European Time. Please keep in mind that you should send the application by then. If you want to know how to send it, look at the rulebook. There is our email address. We won't reject any application that comes 2 or 3 minutes late. So this is not an official filing, not an official submission you make. If you're a little bit late, it's fine. We're not going to look at things at 10 p.m., right? We're going to look at them next morning. So be reasonable. Don't call us. Don't write emails in the middle of the night if your email doesn't work, right? Good. Now the selection criteria, and that's, I think, the thing you really want to know about. How do I get in? So these section 3.3, that's really all there is, right? There are no additional selection criteria than the ones we're mentioning here. Expertise, credibility, and diversity. So this is what you need to fulfill. You need to show us in your application that you have the expertise, that your application is credible, and you're actually a diverse team. Now, let me say a few words about this. With expertise, we want to see that you make a, how should I say, that you make the impression that you're able to handle this, that you're like from a point of view of your knowledge and your skills. If you have ever assessed a piece of technology in the light of the law or the ethics, you know how complicated this is. You know that this is not a thing you can invent on the spot. You need to show that you do have something that you can bring to the table. So this is really important expertise. Huh? We need to see that you're able to do this. You know that we're very much inspired by the DARPA challenges. If you were to pitch in the DARPA challenges, you were a set of lawyers, and it's an engineering challenge. That's not really going to work. You need engineers to do this. For this team, for this competition, you need diversity. I'm going to talk about this in a second. But you also need credibility. You need to have a pitch that we believe in. You know, you must see it from our side of the table. Our greatest fear is that we recruit 6 teams, and when the final comes around, there are only 2. That's going to be a problem for us. So you need to make us see that you're actually going to be there. I think that's the most important thing, right? Let's say until 4 weeks ago, we thought that, you know, there wouldn't be many people, there wouldn't be many applications. Now, of course, we haven't seen them. It looks like there are many groups who are interested in participating. So before we thought, yeah, let's see how it works. Maybe we just have to take anybody. Now it looks like we can be selective. So bear that in mind. It's probably not going to be just sending an email to participate, but there is a selection procedure. Now, diversity, you will ask yourself, what's this? Why do they choose diversity as a criterion? And we write diversity in terms of gender, age, and general background. And by general background, we first of all mean professional background. You're not going to make this challenge if you turn up with just a group of computer scientists. Why? Because you don't have the legal knowledge. If you turn up with a team of lawyers, you're probably not going to make it either, because in the conversations with the AI providers, you likely will need a computer scientist who has the knowledge and the understanding of how these systems actually work, who can interact with the other computer scientists on the other side of the table. So that's professional background, but there is more to it. If you have worked with AI and with AI company, you know that one of the core problems, the critical problem maybe even, is bias in AI. AI tends to be biased because of the data we feed it to. And research has shown that the data is more biased, the less diverse the team is that gathers the data. So the problem that bias creeps into AI is hard to solve, because you need to work on the social environment, but you also need to work on the data, and you need to work on the algorithm. The last thing we want to do with the challenge is to replicate and perpetuate this bias by adding another homogeneous team to the table, which does not have a general background, which does not have general diversity. So see it from this point of view. It's not something that we do because we're kind of, you know, affirmative action fanatics, or because we are kind of super convinced that diversity matters in every aspect. But here, I think it really does. So one thing I talked about with Viktoriya is that, you know, which of these criteria will matter most? My answer was like 4 weeks ago, it's hard to say, because we don't know about the expertise. We don't know whether the expertise level will be really high. Now it seems like the expertise level will be really high, which will make it hard for us to distinguish between applications. In other words, what matters more then is, of course, diversity. If you're super credible, we have a super expertise, but everyone else has that too, and you're not diverse, guess what happens? So that's the kind of thinking that's behind this stuff. So these are the 3 criteria we're going to apply: expertise, credibility, and diversity. Good. So Olga, Juliane, Viktoriya, you let me know if people are like screaming and throwing tomatoes, right?
But now, no.
Not yet.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So how big does a team have to be? we aim to have 6 teams. Now it looks like we're having 8 teams, and this is not arbitrary. The reason why we can only have a limited number of teams is because it's hard to schedule the assessment. You know, it needs a little bit of time. If we have 20 teams and we have 1 application, we need 20 times an hour. That's taking 2.5 days, right? So we're kind of figuring this out now. But we cannot have much more than 6 or 8 teams, also because the room in Square is limited. Every team needs its room in the Square, of course, to do some work, to withdraw and to consult. And we don't have like 25 rooms in Square. It's really simple. This is an organizational constraint. Now you will ask yourself, well, can I participate alone? If you read the rules, yes, you can. If you see the selection, it's very unlikely. Why? Because you're not going to have the expertise if you're alone. Also, organizationally, it's very likely that at the event, you will have to split up the team, right? We will be sending 3 of you to one assessment while the others are working on the one you did first and you didn't finish. So it's going to be a bit hectic and quite intense. So you need a team to do this, right? It's a bit like, you know, when you participate in a sports competition, and then there's, you know, you can bring 4 people, but then you only bring 2. You can do that oftentimes, but ultimately it's not the best way to win. Okay, now really, really important, the affiliation to academia, because lots of questions have reached us about the affiliation to academia. What does it mean? Now, let me give you a little bit of background to this. The University of St. Gallen, which hosts this contest, I mean, I am employed at the University of St. Gallen. I am the University of St. Gallen for the practical purposes here. I am subject to the rules of academia. Our university is a public university. So the only thing we can do basically is research and education. We can't organize sports competition and we can't organize lotteries. We can't just give away $100,000 just because we feel like it. We can do research. What we have found is a way to say, look, this is a research competition, and I truly believe it is. It truly is. But we need to anchor it in academia. We need to say, look, this is a research competition. And the criterion to have a team leader who has an affiliation to academia is our way of anchoring the entire challenge in research and in universities and academia. We need to do this for foundational reasons of our own university. So this is our way of keeping things on the academic ground. Now you will ask, you know, how much of affiliation is enough? Ideally, I would say you have a team leader who has a job at the university. Now, why are we asking for a job? One thing that preoccupies us is that when you're in academia and you have a job, you're subject to the rules of academia, academic honesty, academic freedom, expenses regulation, all that stuff ties in with your position. And you're doing research, you know what research is. So we are saying, look, have an affiliation with academia means you need a current affiliation with academia. It can be basically on any level, as long as you're subject to the rules of your university or your graduate institute, your Fachhochschule, whatever, but not very selective in this regard. As long as it's some kind of a research institution, that's totally fine, but it should be a current affiliation. Just having worked in academia 10 years ago, that's probably not going to do the trick. Having taken a PhD ages ago, that's probably also not going to do the trick, right? So we want to be sure that we have someone who is bound into academia. Now, there's various ways to do this. You know, there are visiting professors, there are honorary professors, there are lecturers, there are PhDs, there are postdocs. Now, if you're in doubt, you can sort of look at things from our perspective and say, like, am I, with this position I have, am I subject to the rules that I have just mentioned? And if you have doubts in this regard, what you could do, for instance, is you could bring something that shows that you are, right? You could show that you are subject to the rules. Have a letter from someone from the university saying, like, look, yes, we know that you're doing this. We know that you're kind of representing the university in this challenge, and we're fine with it. That, I think, would also kind of do the trick, okay? Now, as we're a university and we have students, we would like to foster the educational dimension of the challenge, which is why we encourage you to include 1 or 2 graduate students. Don't include students who, if you can help it, who have just begun to study, because it needs a little bit of experience, right? So senior students would be better. But honestly, if you don't have a student, fair enough, right? It'll, you know, maybe you don't have one. But if you worry about it, you could also join matchmaking, about which I'm going to say a few words afterwards. So you see, maybe that's some bit of comfort for you, that the employees and students of the University of St. Gallen are excluded from the contest. That's for obvious reasons. You know, we don't want them to have the impression that there is an unfair advantage for anyone who participates. We good? This is a terrible slide. It's really copy paste from the rule book. Here you see what you need to do in order to apply, right? And there are 2 things I want to say. You need a bank account, and we just need that, right? We can't send you the amount of money you gain. We can't send you the 100 grants if we don't have a bank account. So please do that. Please send the details along so we have them right from the beginning. Now, what is probably most controversial is, you know, for you, from your perspective, is that we want to hear 2 sentences on what you would do if you won the prize. Now, this we're not going to factor in for the selection. We just want to know to see that you have thought about this, right? Try to see it from our perspective. We wouldn't want to be super happy if we learned that you started a fight after winning the prize. You know, there's a headline in the newspaper, someone said, like, team winning the Grand Challenge at St. Gallen is having a fight in a bar because they can't split the prize. So this is a kind of a way for us to, you know, to nudge you gently towards, you know, thinking about what you would do if you won the prize. Now, final slides about the prize, right? You have probably seen this already. This is section 2.3, so more at the beginning of the rule book. We really don't tie very many strings to the prize. And the prize really is a cash amount of money. It's not in banknotes. No, we're going to send it to you, but it's cash, you know. So we're not going to give you a Swiss cow or you know, or an Italian Ferrari as a prize or a gold bar. No, it's going to be a cash sum, $100,000 for the winner. But for the same reason that I said before, we can't just splash out the money just like that. It somehow needs to be tied to research, right? Now, this University of St. Gallen, it has this kind of you know, overused logo, which is called From Insight to Impact, which I find kind of tacky, and it's been around forever, and everyone has forgotten about it. But for these purposes here, it's actually kind of useful, because we say, look, if you win the prize, you should use it to further your research, insight, or to implement your research and create some impact. Now, all the rest is up to you, right? As long as you're subject to the home university rules, this thing will matter, of course, because the home university will look at this. But other than that, obviously, we're not going to follow you around and say, like, "Ooh, why are you having a seminar in Mallorca or on the Canary Islands?" This might be, you know, you say, well, we have to discuss that stuff, so we create impact. That will be up to you. We just want to say, look, these are the 2 kind of tiny strings we have to attach to the prize because we're a public university.
Maybe a couple of words about the matchmaking.
Yes, so matchmaking and one-on-one. So the idea of matchmaking is, you know, that if you're someone who wants to participate, but for one reason or another, you can't field a team because you don't have the connection. Maybe you're a junior. Maybe you're at a place where there aren't many people who are interested in this. Then we thought it was a good idea to do a matchmaking session. Now, we have taken also in this regard inspiration from the DARPA challenges. They do that at their, what they also call Proposers Day. They do matchmaking. We have thought it a good idea to offer this, but I have come to realize that maybe matchmaking only works or begins to work after you have had this session, this informational session, especially after you realize that diversity is actually kind of important. You may look at your team and you may think, well, maybe we need someone else. Then matchmaking becomes interesting. So what I suggest, unless Viktoriya is of another opinion, what I suggest is that we'll take more matchmaking, we'll continue it. You can write us your email, say, I want to sign up to matchmaking for another couple of days. and then we'll see what we'll do it. I mean, at the worst, we just send around the list we have, persons with email addresses with very brief introductory statements, to see who's around and who's maybe seeking a connection to a team. That's the least of things we can do, sending around the Excel file. But for that, you should give us you obviously give us your permission to do that, to show your name when you're kind of saying, look, I want to be part of matchmaking. Now we don't have a terribly many persons in the matchmaking file, do we, Olga?
Not so much, around 10
Yes.
or 12 people, yeah.
Around 10 or 12 people. So I'd ask these 10 or 12 people to be a bit patient. Maybe we can fill up that list a bit further and see whether there is more interest in matchmaking, right? So if you're interested in matchmaking, basically write us an email. The link to the matchmaking document, does that still work, Olga?
Yeah, it should work, yeah.
Okay, so you can still register for matchmaking, but distinguish matchmaking from one-on-one sessions, right? One-on-one sessions is the session where you meet us in person because you have some special concern which is not answered by the proposals day, right? Or the rulebook, right? So you see, well, I have this specific concern. Look, we just want to be open. There might be concerns we're not thinking about. There might be points which we have overlooked. So we are ready to listen to you. The idea is that you have a special concern and that you don't just come to talk with us about ethics. That's also something we can do, but this is not the point of the one-on-one session, right? So if you feel that you need a one-on-one session, write us. We can still do that next week. We won't do it forever, of course, but we still have some time. I think now we have 2 persons who are on a one-on-one session because they had a request that they wanted to discuss with us personally. So that we do right after this session. But other than that, feel free to write us. So finally, yeah, there's one last point I want to address, and then I will be done. You know, you saw the images, you saw the video of the boot camp, and it's really an absolutely fantastic occasion, and it's really a great thing to be there, right? Remember that it's not mandatory. But you will say, well, it's kind of mandatory because if you do this carryover application, right? If we see an application for the first time at the boot camp, which you carry over into the final, of course we have to be at the boot camp. Answer, yes, we're aware of this. We are very much aware of this. And we haven't really decided whether we want to do the carryover yet because it depends on certain factors. We want to be extra careful not to say that the boot camp is really mandatory because we are aware that the gap is a problem for some of you who have to travel, especially if you have to travel from afar. You're facing an additional 5 or 6 nights of accommodation, which can be a budgetary problem. But the point is, you know, much as we want you to be there, like the whole team at the boot camp, it's not strictly speaking necessary to send everyone. You could think about, look, I mean, maybe you're from the US and maybe you want to come with the whole team, but not the whole team has time all the time. So maybe we want to send 1 or 2, which is better than nothing, right? So you gain the first experience, so you have a kind of a spearhead. We also want to be extra careful with the boot camp because, I mean, you know, we think, from our experience with ethics of AI, ethics of robotics, and the general discussion about the law of AI and the law of intelligent algorithms, the whole thing that surrounds it, maybe you have also followed the international law discussion in Geneva about CCW, you know, the Certain Conventional Weapons Convention, which is about autonomous weapon system and so on and so forth. The point is, not everybody is extremely comfortable with the security context, right? And the RG days, ARCE, and the boot camp will take place in a security context. It's the Swiss armed forces, the disaster relief, I should say, groups that help organize the boot camp, but there will be persons who are from the military there. And if you say, look, I absolutely don't want to have anything to do with this, we still want you to participate in the grand challenge, right? Maybe you can send someone, you know, who's not so sensitive to this, or maybe you have someone on the team who says, like, look, I'm fine with this. Maybe you have some people who say, we don't want to do this, but then we can still find a way of accommodating you. If we made it mandatory and said, like, everybody has to be there, we're kind of facing a problem here. So this is the reason why we're kind of, you know, a bit let's say soft or not apodictic on the question of participating in the bootcamp. That's pretty much everything I have to say for the moment. I mean, everything else, you know, that pertains to the competition, everything else that concerns the Grand Challenge final, you know, what are the particular rules there? You know, you see that the rulebook says something about, you know, the criteria we use to determine the winner. That we need to let you know because it's kind of relevant for you to participate or to decide whether you want to participate. But all like the logistical stuff, you know, when does what happen in the Grand Challenge final, that we will settle as the event draws near and when we have certainty that we'll actually have teams who participate in the Grand Challenge. Right? Are we good?
Yeah.
I'll head back to Olga. Or maybe Viktoriya, you want to say something?
Yeah, maybe we both will say something about it. I just wanted to touch upon the names of the teams, following back to the thesis
yes.
that we are representing a public institution, and this is a research project in the end, which is why we cannot accept teams that are going to be named after a commercial project, because we can't support you in marketing endeavors. Yeah, maybe Thomas wants to say something about
No,
this.
I mean, you basically said the essence. I mean, you know, I mean, when you apply, you see that the rulebook requires you to state the name of your team, which of course you need to be allowed to use. But I think Viktoriya has an important point here. We wouldn't want you to call your team like your company, right? Because we're not we're not an advertisement, right? We're not slapping posters on the walls with your name on it. But that also has to do with the fact that we are a research institution, a public institution. While we're not afraid of, you know, of contact with the economy and the market and so on and so forth, I think it's prudent here in this particular situation to choose a name that is, let's say, hasn't been used by your company, or of course not another company or another undertaking in the market. Call it someone like Team Red, or, you know, Blue Sky or something, or you know, the DARPA challenge, you know, the Subterranean challenge, the winning team was called Team Cerberus. You know, I say that because Pascal was involved with that team, Swiss Center of Drone and Robotics teams. He's very, very modest, but they actually won the Grand Challenge, you know, the DARPA Subterranean Challenge of 2021. And the Swiss Center was very much involved in this. And that was a challenge where they actually won 2 million, not just 100,000 grants, but it was an engineering challenge. So if in case of doubt, if you want to have a name, look at the previous challenges, you know, organized by the DARPA, and you'll see that most of the team will carry some kind of a fancy, but you know, fictitious name. Maybe you want to say something, Pascal. I see you're shifting.
yeah. That's really a lot of you know, that you give us as credits, but the credits to our research partner there. Yeah, maybe Thomas, I just to jump in, I saw an interesting question out in the Q&A. Maybe you can elaborate on that a bit, because I think it's worth to do that. Emmy was asking about what will the teams be producing during the challenge. You know, maybe you give some words about the idea. You know, what will be the result? You know, what do you think the teams will produce and have to do basically as a result to win the thing?
Okay, good. So my generic answer is this: we'll settle that later, right? But I understand that you want to know now. So here's a first attempt, right? I mean, so your first, let's say, point of reference, of course, is the EU AI Act. And the EU AI Act contains norms, contains statements, contains expectations, contains provisions, rules, and stuff. And that's kind of the framework, right? If you do something that collides with the EU framework, EU AI Act, that's maybe not going to be the ideal assessment. But that's just plain, you know, obvious. And we all know that the EU AI Act is kind of superficial on very, very many relevant points. So that's the framework. But then there are several tools out there, right? NIST, the National Institute of Standards in the US, has just published a risk management framework. that might be a relevant point that might tell you how to do this thing and how the outcome might look. But really, we are really, let's say, reluctant to get involved in this, because this is what we're trying to find out. You know, what's the ideal output from an assessment of an AI? And that's really what you need to bring to the table. You need to bring this assessment to the table, and you need to condense it so, and that's really important, that the jury understands it, can look at it and say, like, this is really convincing. I think this complies best with the law. You need to convince a jury, right? And the jury is, in a sense, mimicking a court, right? A court. We are, in a sense, you know, putting up a court as it were, as if you went to court and your assessment were to be challenged in court. And you will have people sit there who are not technology experts, right? You won't find, like, you know, computer scientists sitting in court. You'll have regular civil judges, and they are very experienced in judging, but they're not very experienced in technology. And these people you need to convince. As always, when you go to court, you need to convince the judges, right? And if you're a lawyer, you have a lawyer on board, I think that's probably a good idea, then you will be very familiar with this procedure. You know what it takes to convince the judge, and you know what the product must look like in order to, you know, to make the judge believe that you are the best. Is that good enough?
Yeah, thank you.
We have one important question on what it means to not contact the AI providers. What does it mean in detail?
If you're involved in ethics, you know that ethics is always, and I hope no one takes this like as an offense, always a bit vague, right? The guideline is always kind of, makes you always kind of think like, and so it is here. This is part of the code of ethics. Don't contact the AI providers. Of course, we are aware that now that you form a team, you maybe want to contact technology companies. Maybe you want to, you know, combine with someone from a technology company. Maybe you want to integrate someone from a technology company into your team. And it's possible that, you know, that you take someone on board who is already an AI provider. And they are very unlikely to tell you, because we tell them that they need to keep it secret. But it's possible, since some of these companies are very large, that one arm does not know what the other does. But we will see it on your application. And if that's the case, then we will have to find a way, right? I mean, really, I mean, this speaks to, how should I say, the fact that the Grand Challenge really is a collaborative thing, right? We're not looking to organize, you know, a 100-meter sprint where you just go to the start and then you sprint. And we're actually, we will collaborate with you, but there are certain limits what we can do, and there are certain limits what you can do together with other teams, and so on and so forth. But I'm aware, I mean, I'm aware that this is difficult. I'm aware that this is difficult, and that there's a certain probability that you will knock on our doors and you will be the team that actually already provides the AI technology. But then we will look at it, and then we still have the possibility to say, well, then we won't work with that AI provider, or the other possibility is it's just tough luck for you. We won't take you on board, which is not ideal, but there is no other way out of this conundrum, if you like. Or do you see that differently, Viktoriya?
I think it's just probably a good idea to say a few words on, because we also had a couple of questions on what technology is going to be during the boot camp and during the finals, if it's the same technology, and how does it affect the teams that are going to either take part in the boot camp or not.
Okay, good. So the boot camp is pretty plain, right? Pascal said it. We'll have embodied disaster relief technology, right? Technology that is used for disaster relief purposes. So it'll be robotics, right? And if you study the AI Act, you will see that the question whether the AI Act applies is not tied to a thing being embodied or not. It's about the algorithm, the technology that is in the thing, the software, the AI, right? So as long as these devices you'll see in the boot camp are intelligent in that sense, then they're interesting under the EU AI Act. But it's true, we are aware that this is a very selective look at the EU AI Act. If we just deal with disaster relief robotics, you're just looking at one thing. But the final, I won't tell you which technology will be there, obviously, but what we can say is that we're aiming for a broad and diverse array of technology. We're looking to have as diverse AI as possible from sectors that are very diverse. I'm not going to name one sector at this point because this is going to sow confusion. But let's say you are considering to put together a team, and you are from, I wouldn't know, from the dental industry, right? And you have like the best experts on producing dental applications, you know, run by AI. Then you might say, well, maybe we are good dentists, but maybe we don't know all about the other stuff. So maybe sending 5 dentists or 6 dentists to the grand challenge probably will not do the trick. I'm not saying anything against dentists. You know, dentists do the very important work, but I'm just saying, look, if you have a unique, narrow, highly specialized view on this thing, it's going to be very hard. Then it's just going to be very hard to do the final. You need to establish yourself broadly with a team so that you have a broad array of experience and professional expertise. But maybe I have said this quite often, and I want to be a bit, you know, a bit careful. You know, someone has to be on the team, and you won't be able to cover everything, right? So if you have a couple of people who do different stuff, that already sounds good, right? So I don't want to, you know, scare you away saying like, whoa, they have mile-high expectation and we're never going to fulfill them. Someone will get in, and it might as well be you. Good enough?
Yeah, I mean, we started having more questions about what exactly the teams have to do to win the competition, but I just want to say a couple of words that those questions that you have sent to us, if we didn't answer it today, we have collected them. We will elaborate on them and send it to you and to everyone anonymously, because these are important questions, and we don't have time to address everything. I think there is one very important question that would be good to have on this session, though, is about the jury, Thomas, because there is a question.
What's the question?
The question
who's going to preside it? No.
What is the expertise and scientific fields of the jury members?
Sorry, you have to say that again. There was a disturbance. What's the
expertise and scientific fields of the jury members?
They are lawyers. That's about as much as I will say.
Okay.
They are lawyers. Lawyers sit on court. You're not going to see a doctor on court. I mean, unless you faint. But I mean, you know, you're confronting experts who know how to judge, right? That's about all I can say at this point. But really, I mean, you know, I know that this question is extremely important for you, and it should be extremely important because if you have some experience with the law, you know that it matters a great deal who sits on the court, and you want to fine-tune your message depending on who sits on the court. You will learn about this. You will get to know who sits on the court. But my suggestion at this point is it's not so terribly relevant for you to decide whether you are going to participate or not. Okay? Maybe we should also say a word, you know, I know that lawyers can sometimes be a bit scary, and they're kind of, you know, off-putting because they're kind of, you know, they have this unique view and they're very technical and everything. I think you can make a perfect case to a judge, even if you don't have like a million years of experience with the law. I know I'm contradicting myself a little bit, but I also want to tone down the rhetoric a bit, you know, to manage the expectations. It's not like it's not a court procedure where the court will actually afterwards give a reasoned written opinion on why your thing was bad, right? So it's really, you know, in a sense, it's a playful undertaking we're having here. But of course, in the end, it'll be the jury members who will decide who gets the prize.
Yeah, I think the rest of the questions can be answered in written form. So, Olha.
Yeah, if speakers have nothing to add, we can wrap up our meeting. Yeah. Thomas, Viktoriya.
Yeah, I want again to say thank you to everyone. And again, those who haven't gotten the answer to their questions, we will collect the questions and distribute the answers in written form to everyone.
Yeah. Maybe let me, perhaps by way of conclusion, say something about, you know, the idea behind the grand challenge. You know, I know that we have these rules and they are in the rule book and they contain some pretty, let's say, rigid walls, if you like. You know, you're not allowed to talk to an AI provider outside of the contest, during the contest. You know, that's of course to safeguard the integrity of the content. But the idea of the grand challenge, of course, is to establish networks, to foster cooperation, to bring you into research and the researchers into practice, to have like a credible, you know, a credible bunch of people who know how to do that stuff. And of course, that relies on cooperation and collaboration. So of course, when the grand challenge is done, you'll be able to talk to everyone. We won't claim anything of what you have developed for the grand challenge. We won't claim any of the IP rights. There is a specific section in the rule book on this. I think that's also very important. You can read that through. I think it's fairly informative, and we have written it in a sense to give you comfort that we won't claim your intellectual property rights, that we do this thing only as far as is necessary to make the competition a success, right? So that's just something that was on my personal mind as well.
Thank you. Yeah, no one disconnected during the webinar, so I guess it was really informative for prospective participants. Thank you, speakers. Yeah, I guess we covered all the items in our agenda and can finish the meeting. Thanks all for coming, attending, and finding time for Proposers Day. Yeah, that's all for today. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And
all good.
All the best luck to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.